Here I am, talking to Paul Simon after we've heard the first track of his new album, Seven Psalms. This is called The Lord. Just to jump straight in, Paul, it's a beautiful record.
That's nice of you to say.
I've just tested it out on the Victoria line of the London Underground. I've got a pair of fancy world-cancelling headphones, and it was just so beautiful looking around the hard-working and very hot faces on the Underground. No mistake in your writing, no mistake in your voice or your guitar playing. Lots of references to past works in Seven Psalms. And the love affair with people that's always come through in your writing. Do you still live in the city?
I live in different places. I've been spending a lot of time in Texas.
Okay.
Very lovely people, terrible politics. But really nice people. And my wife is from Texas.
Yeah.
So we bought a place there, and it's in the country. Very quiet. My little recording studio is there, so I've written a couple of songs since Seven Psalms.
I was going to ask you if you ever stop writing. Do you continually write?
No, I don't. I seem to write on cycles of 3 years. It takes me a year and a half to write, then it takes me another year to record and tweak, then I start to mix. Anyway, the whole procedure usually takes about 3 years. Looking back over my now really long career, it's sort of been that way.
Yeah.
The studio albums that I've made, including the ones that I made with Simon and Garfunkel, it's over a period of 60 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. I can't get over it myself. It's, it's just sort of what happens. It's a very weird thing. The whole aging thing is really, really a trip. You keep saying, well, that's it. I mean, that's the way it goes, and this is it. You shouldn't be surprised, but you're completely surprised. My memories of living in London are so completely vivid, and that's like 1964, 1965.
Yeah. Do you remember playing at the Roundhouse in Camden?
Yeah, sure.
I played a show there recently. I'm a songwriter as well, Paul.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, and I thought we were long in the tooth for being together for 32 years, but you've just got us beaten square there.
It becomes clearer, right, about how to deal with music. I think it's very interesting, because I think the first things that we write are some sort of natural melody that we accumulated or that we absorbed when we were very young, music that we heard and maybe weren't even aware of.
First thing I remember, I was lying in my bed.
But we loved it, and first music that you write has that melodic quality, and then after you use that up, then that becomes the first test for musicians about, and now you got to dig deeper to find the source of your inspiration.
I find myself, if I'm writing freely, if I've not sat down deliberately to write a song about something, if I'm just letting the words find my mouth, I end up going back to bits of the Bible. I was brought up a Catholic, mixed with sort of early 80s advertising slogans.
That's good.
Yeah, and then locations and times. Can I ask you, are there places in your life that you find yourself going back to lyrically?
Not that I'm aware of. There's an element, of course, of autobiography in it, but mostly I'm making up stuff, It's not like I'm making up things that I haven't experienced or heard about, but they're not actually that. There's an element there, but otherwise, I would deviate from the truth of my life if a song wanted to go to another place.
More of that interview with me and Paul Simon later on in the programme. So the next segment of my interview with the great man that is Paul Simon, I was asking him about the draw of making music, of songwriting.
To me, the most powerful thing that's going on is the music.
Yeah.
The part that doesn't have words, that isn't expressed with words, but the part that expresses your feeling. You can express your feeling on the instrument that you play with less complications than when you have to put it into words, don't you think?
I do, except I do not have anything like the fluency you have with a guitar, with any instrument. I mean, it's your playing is unmistakable to me. And as I mentioned before, there are echoes of licks from other songs of yours running through Seven Psalms.
That's true.
Are your guitars, are they precious characters or are they good tools? What's your actual relationship with your instrument like?
My main acoustic guitar, which is a 1972 Gurion, I would say is the most valued possession that I have.
Great. That's what I was after. It's been with you a long time then?
1972.
That's fantastic. And has it got any interesting knocks, and where did you get them?
Not too many, because I didn't travel with it and take it. I don't play it in concerts. I have other guitars, my Martins that I play are...
Yeah, they're beautiful.
They're really good. But this 1972 Gurion is what I've played on all of my solo albums. And I've always kept it, near where the studio is and not traveled with it being too nervous. Now I can't really bear to be separated from it. And since we live part-time in one place and part-time in another, I take it with me all the time. I couldn't be without it.
My guitarist, Mark Potter, who's the guy I started the band with 30-odd years ago, the first song we learnt to play together was The Boxer. And after that...
acoustic?
Yes, yeah. And after that, it was America. And when we get to the laughing on the bus part, to this day, he always plays the wrong chord. Could you do me a personal favour and remind him, if you can remember off the top of your head, what that chord is?
Well, let's see. If it was on the second fret, I would be playing in the key of D, and that chord would be a G major seventh.
Perfect. Mark Potter, from the horse's mouth. There you go. That's been something that's been bothering him for 32 years.
Let us be lovers, we'll marry our fortunes together.
What a privileged life I've led. What strange circumstances lead me to be interviewing the man that I used to make a living out of busking his songs with my friend Alan, and later playing with Mark Potter. Anyway, more of that interview with Paul Simon later in the programme. So the last thing I played you from the interview with Paul Simon was the track America, which, as I said, has lots of history for me. We then went on to... I'll be honest with you, he wouldn't be drawn on specific lyrics. If I was to guess, I'd say he's had trouble in the past for either his politics or his religion or lack of, or talking about his history. I will tell you the truth, he was quite guarded on individual lyrics, but eventually he would be drawn on this one particular thing, and it led to something very touching. Here we go.
It's funny that you asked about America. I had an interesting thought, it was a couple of years now, when it was during a performance. I have a song, it's from an album, So Beautiful or So What, called Rewrite. It's about a Vietnam PTSD guy who's determined to rewrite the story of his life. And I like the record, quite a bit. It just comes off of this one guitar riff. It doesn't change chords. It just does this little guitar line. And I thought at one point when I was singing the song, this guy, he's the kid who got on the bus in America.
Oh.
That's the big arc of this story. He's that guy. He's so young in America, naive, and then by the end, he's obviously a guy who's been damaged, but he's rewriting the damage that happened to him in his life and that he did.
I've been working on my rewrite, that's right.
Wonderful. Paul Simon and Rewrite. More of that interview later on. I thought it was very touching. So, we're talking poetry, and then I was talking to Paul Simon last week. The Beckerpedia's done a wonderful job of editing it up into something coherent, because I was very nervous. What I didn't mention in this clip, which is worth mentioning to you now before you hear it, is that in case you didn't know, Paul Simon is married to Edie Brickell. Just to get back to 7 Psalms, I've listened to it 3 times today, end to end. The wonderful appearance of your wife, her voice is just, I mean, both your voices are, if you don't mind me saying so, aging so beautifully. It's really something else.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, there were lyrics that jumped out at me. The woman spoke, her voice a blend of regional perfumes. That's just so wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I like that line too when I wrote it. Sometimes the pleasure of the writing is you don't know what you're going to write 1 second and then the next second it's there, and that was one of those lines. And I thought when I wrote it, that's a very good description of what I imagined her voice to be.
I mean, the line itself is a beautiful, gentle tour of vowel sounds. I think they're all in there. It's really, really lovely in itself. It's a beautiful collection of words. And
thank you.
The imagery within it is just fantastic. It always happens in your songs that something, on first listen, something will grab you and take you with it.
For a change of mood.
How wonderful. I can't thank you enough. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Becky, for editing up that piece so wonderfully.